Welcome back, Toddler Tribe, to our series where we are investigating my book chapter by chapter by chapter. And you get some goodies and insights that aren't in there. This is my favorite part, especially about having this platform, is that I really can explore this with you in a different way than readers who just open the book and go all the way through will experience. All right, so today we're tackling the introduction. And this was a really interesting piece for me to write. I knew I wanted to lead with story because I'm a storyteller. So that's exactly what I did. So I'm going to read to you a little bit of this introduction. I want to open a home-based childcare, I told my husband. Why? He countered. You love teaching. It was true. I loved my job teaching tiny people how to positively engage with each other while learning essential life skills to support the often overwhelming transition to kindergarten. That's my why, folks. That is my deep mission. That the birth to five space that often gets overlooked and underattended to is where we need to put our focus, because it changes the trajectory of their entire life when we do. But I was pregnant with our second child, and I didn't want to miss a minute of her early days. If you know my story, then you know the reason it mattered to me so intensely that I get to be with Claire from the minute she was born and not separated from her immediately to go right back to work is because we lost our first child. And Emma Grace was the reason that I redefined who I planned to be as a parent, my goals, my dreams, my intentions, and redefined who I really wanted to raise when I was blessed enough to take home a baby from the hospital instead of deliver a stillborn little girl at 40 weeks in one day. So, back to the story. I was pregnant with our second child and didn't want to miss a minute of her early days. The obvious solution for me, at least, was to take time away from my classroom teaching position and care for other infants and toddlers while raising ours. Now, I say it was obvious for me because that's who I am. I am somebody who feeds off and gets fueled by the presence of tiny human beings. And I know that that makes me a bit of a rarity. A lot of people get overwhelmed and they get triggered, and their sensory system just doesn't feel good when they're around tiny people because they are getting triggered by these kids' states of being. So that's something we dive further into later in the book. But I tell you that because my husband is one of those people. So for me to say, I want to open a home-based childcare, he was kind of like, why? And do we really have to? But I did need income, right? So there was that too. A few months later, there were 3 kids under 2 crawling and toddling through our home. I'm going to read that again. 3 kids under 2 years old. And ours wasn't even born yet. I know. Does it sound crazy? Like a little wacky? I'm sure it does to many. But for those of you who are in the caregiving lane, for those of you who have a caregiving heart, who are just born to be nurturers to tiny humans, you get it. You get it. That this just made sense to me. One day, my husband walked through the door and stopped in his tracks. They're all crying, he reported, watching me calmly filling bottles while simultaneously testing the temperature of warmed baby and toddler food. Yep, I chirped. Just give them a minute. They'll be settled. How do you know what they need? He asked after showing clear signs of overwhelm as the volume began to rise from their chorus of cries. And here's where I just love to be. They're telling me, I said, smiling at each little one while singing short, soothing responses to their cries. I hear you. You are hungry. You wish you could have your bottle right now. It's nearly ready. This chapter continues on, this introduction continues on to complete the story and also to share with you not only the core of who I am, but that is an essential component to what makes this book work, but also what you can expect to read as you move through the book. Part 1 explores the science of early receptive and expressive language development and how infants and toddlers interpret your words subconsciously, consciously, as their brain development, the architecture of that brain gets woven together by how you talk to them. In short, part 1 covers the why of early language modeling. And then in part 2, we really dive in to 25 intentional language strategies that nurture true human connection, which, as you know, is the foundation for any learning, the availability to learn, that engage a child's growing brain and that empower them to think for themselves. And if you caught the last episode, and as I was just sharing about Barb Wilder Smith and how astounding it was that she wrote the foreword for this book, and that her company focuses primarily on cultivating emotional regulation in small people so that they can be available for increasing their cognition. This is really the point. So I spent months, over 3 months. I took a tour. I called it a listening tour. And I moved from different childcare centers to home-based caregiving spaces. I went to early childhood programs that were privately funded, that are publicly funded. I did this throughout the entire Northeast. So I made sure to hit places that were rural and also places that are urban, places that are not so diverse, and locations that have very intense diversity, which made for a different listening experience. And putting together all this information that I observed and I heard, along with what I know to be true from my background in linguistics about how to frame language using word selection, phrasal selection, tone, and more, these 25 intentional language strategies evolved. So I hope you enjoyed a taste of the introduction and have a bigger vision now for what this book is and how it can fit into your life. This is for teachers in training so that you can slide into that classroom and you can start talking to them like you have been doing it your entire life. This is for parents who want to shift the way that you speak to your kids at home and in the world. This is for caregivers. And I just have to caveat this by saying that I believe 150% that every single person who plays a trusted role in an infant, toddler, or preschooler's life and spends any significant amount of time with them on a consistent basis is a teacher. Is daycare worker on your card? Great. You're a teacher. Is first-time parent on your dossier here? Perfect. You're a teacher. Have you signed a contract with a program and you go in and educate kids every day? Cool. You're a teacher. Every single person who has this foundational impact on a young person's being and brain is an early childhood educator. And that, my friends, means you are all someone who could take something away from this book. And that makes me so happy because I don't come on here and say, hi, Toddler Tribe, for no reason. The tribe is made up of lots of different people who have lots of different titles, but they all fill the same role according to our people, our toddlers, and our preschoolers. Okay, you know what to do. Use the link in the show notes to pre-order your copy today and make sure you're following the show because next week I'll be back with another excerpt from another chapter. Until then, stay mindful and proactive as we transform the toddler years.